You're sitting on the couch. You haven't said anything. You haven't cried. Nothing about this moment is loud or dramatic. It's just a Tuesday, and something landed on you that you haven't processed yet. You're staring at the middle distance when you feel the weight shift beside you. Your dog was on the other side of the room. You didn't call them. You didn't make a sound. And now they're pressed against your leg, chin on your knee, looking at you with something that feels, honestly, like they understand. Most people call this intuition, some kind of sixth sense, a mystical connection between dogs and humans that science can't quite touch. But over the last 15 years, researchers across 4 continents have been measuring exactly what happens in these moments, and what they've found isn't mystical at all. It's more impressive than that. Your dog is reading you through at least 4 separate biological systems, operating simultaneously with a precision that most humans can't match. And the first one starts working before you even know you're upset. In 2022, a team at Queen's University Belfast did something no lab had attempted at that scale before. They collected sweat and breath samples from human volunteers under 2 conditions: baseline calm and acute psychological stress. Then they presented those samples to dogs and measured whether the dogs could reliably tell the difference. Scent alone, no visual cues, no voice, no body language. The dogs identified the stress samples with 93.75% accuracy. Not after months of specialized training. After 4 days of learning the task. The chemical shift that happens in your body when you're distressed changes the volatile organic compounds in your perspiration and your breath, and that shift is loud enough for a dog's olfactory system to detect almost instantly. 300 million olfactory receptors, a region of the brain dedicated to processing scent that's proportionally 40 times larger than ours. Your dog isn't guessing that something is wrong. It's detecting a biochemical event that you yourself may not even be consciously aware of yet. But scent is only the first channel. And it's not even the most surprising one. In 2015, a team led by Corson Mueller at the Messerli Research Institute in Vienna trained dogs to distinguish between photographs of human faces showing 2 emotions, happiness and anger. The dogs were shown only the upper half or the lower half of the face, never the whole thing. They learned to tell them apart from either half alone, but the asymmetry in how they learned is what tells the story. Dogs trained to identify happy faces learned faster. Dogs trained on angry faces learned more slowly and showed more hesitation during the task. The researchers concluded the dogs weren't just detecting visual patterns, they had already built associations with what those expressions meant from their daily lives. An angry face predicted something aversive. A happy face predicted something good. They weren't reading pixels, they were reading meaning. A year later, a team at the University of Lincoln and the University of Sao Paulo went further. Natalia Albuquerque and colleagues played dogs' audio recordings of human vocalizations, positive and negative. At the same time, they showed them 2 faces on a screen, one matching the emotional tone, one contradicting it. The dogs looked significantly longer at the face that matched the sound. Happy voice, happy face. Sustained gaze. Angry voice paired with a happy face. They looked away. This is called cross-modal emotional recognition. The ability to take information from 2 completely different senses and integrate them into a single emotional judgment. Until this study, it had only been conclusively demonstrated in humans and great apes. Your dog is doing it every time it hears your voice and sees your face in the same moment. Now here's where it stops being about perception and starts being about response. In 2012, Deborah Custance and Jennifer Mayer at Goldsmiths University of London ran an experiment that has become one of the most cited papers in canine cognition research. 18 dogs were exposed to 4 conditions: their owner crying, their owner humming an unusual sound, a stranger crying, a stranger humming. The headline result was simple. Dogs approached crying humans significantly more than humming humans. But the finding that actually changed the field was this. They approached the crying stranger at the same rate as the crying owner. Think about what that means. The dog wasn't seeking comfort from its person. It was moving toward a distressed human it had never met, with no prior relationship, no training, no expectation of reward. For no reason other than the distress itself. And the way they approached was specific, not bouncing. Not playful, not demand behavior. They approached with lowered posture, slow movement, quiet physical contact. In behavioral terms, the approach looked less like curiosity and more like consolation. The researchers were careful with their language. They called it empathy-like responding. But whatever you call it, the behavior has a clear structure. Detect distress in another being. Regulate your own state. Approach. Offer contact. That isn't a reflex. That's a sequence that requires something happening internally. A 2018 study confirmed how urgently dogs can act on this. Researchers placed dogs behind a transparent door they could push open. On the other side, their owner was either humming calmly or crying audibly. Dogs whose owners were crying opened the door 3 times faster. But the second finding was the one that mattered more. The dogs who opened the door fastest were the ones showing the lowest personal stress. The dogs most overwhelmed by the sound showed the highest heart rate and visible distress signs. And they actually froze. They didn't move at all. This mirrors one of the most well-documented findings in human empathy research. Empathic action only happens when the observer can regulate their own emotional response first. If the distress is too contagious, too overwhelming, the system shuts down. Which means the dog who crosses the room and puts its head on your lap isn't doing something simple. It heard you, felt the pull of your distress in its own body, managed that pull, and then acted. That takes regulation. And then there's a detail that most people miss. Your dog doesn't just detect that something is wrong. Research suggests it distinguishes between types of negative emotion and responds differently to each. In 2018, researchers at the University of Bari found that dogs show a left gaze bias when viewing expressions of anger, fear, and surprise. They look preferentially at the left side of a human face. Happy and neutral faces produce no such bias. In humans, the left gaze bias is associated with right hemisphere processing of threatening or emotionally intense stimuli. The dogs weren't just noticing the emotion. They were processing it through neural architecture typically reserved for threat assessment. A separate body of research on canine behavioral responses has shown that dogs respond to human sadness with approach and physical contact, but respond to anger with avoidance and appeasement signals. Same owner, different emotion, different behavioral output. Your dog isn't running a single human is upset program. It's classifying the emotional signal and generating a calibrated response. When you're sad, it comes close. When you're angry, it gives you space. It has learned, possibly across its entire life with you, what each version of you needs. There's a layer underneath all of this that most people never hear about, and it might be the most important one. In 2019, researchers at Linköping University in Sweden measured long-term cortisol in 58 dog owner pairs. Not the spike from a single stressful afternoon. The slow hormonal accumulation over months. Captured in hair samples, the levels were synchronized. Stressed owner, stressed dog, calm owner, calm dog. And when they tested which direction the influence ran, the answer was clear. The owner's cortisol predicted the dog's, not the other way around. A 2024 study from the University of Jyväskylä in Finland added a real-time dimension. They measured heart rate variability in dog owner pairs across 6 different conditions. HRV is one of the most reliable markers of autonomic nervous system regulation. High variability means relaxed and flexible. Low means locked in a stress response. Bonded pairs showed synchronized HRV patterns across every condition measured. Dogs tested with unfamiliar humans showed no synchronization at all. The effect only existed within the bond. What this means is that your dog isn't just reading your sadness in the moment. After months and years of living beside you, its stress biology has calibrated itself against yours. Your emotional baseline has become its baseline. When you shift, it shifts. Before the tears, before the posture change, before anything visible happens at all. Your dog's nervous system is already moving with yours. It's not responding to your sadness. It's already inside it. So here's what's actually happening in that moment on the couch. Before you consciously registered your own mood, your dog detected a change in the volatile organic compounds leaving your skin and breath. It cross-referenced your facial expression with the sound of your voice, or your silence. It classified the emotional state using the same integrative process once thought to be limited to primates. Its cortisol and heart rate variability shifted in tandem with yours. Because after months of co-regulation, your nervous systems are no longer fully independent. And then it got up, walked across the room, and pressed itself against you. Not because it was trained to, not because it wanted something, not because it was confused. Because something in the architecture of what dogs became across 15,000 years beside us built a creature that doesn't just detect human suffering. It is moved by it. A creature whose brain processes your face with neural lateralization it reserves for threats, whose reward center activates more strongly to your scent than to food. Whose stress biology is so deeply tethered to yours that your bad day becomes its bad day before you've said a single word. Your dog doesn't know what happened. It doesn't understand the situation. It can't fix it, but it knew before you did. And it came anyway, with the only thing it has to offer, presence, and according to every measure the science has available. Cortisol, oxytocin, heart rate variability, neural activation. That presence isn't symbolic. It isn't just comforting. It is measurably, physiologically helping, not metaphorically, chemically. If this changed how you understand that quiet moment when your dog just knows, subscribe and leave a comment below. Has your dog ever come to you before you even realized you needed them? And if you're wondering what happens on the other side of this, what your dog actually goes through when you leave for the day, that's where the science gets even harder to hear. See you in the next one.